Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Teacher Josa, your learning buddy. Welcome sa ating personal development class. Alright, so let me share my screen. Okay. Alright, our last topic is, of course, it's all about coping mechanism. Diba? You write different hashtags related to our topic. Yung iba sa inyo, no, wants to listen sa music, others do some exercises, and yung iba ay kain, no? Alright, so for today's lesson, I want you to label the parts of the brain. Actually, nagawa na natin to in our in lesson number 6, cognitive development. So, ito, refresh lang ng memory. All right. So, number one, it controls important cognitive skills in humans, such as emotional expression, problem solving, memory, language, judgment, and sexual behaviors. So, what is that? That is frontal lobe. Don't forget that, okay? Next, for number two, it processes sensory information regarding the location of parts of the body, as well as interpreting visual information, process language, and math. Okay, that is parietal lobe. Okay? I think it's parental lobe with N. All right, it's parietal lobe. Okay, not N or not parental lobe. X yun ha. Okay. Next is, oh wait, number three, process and interprets everything we see. That is the occipital lobe, of course. Next, for number four, involved in primary audition perception, such as hearing, and holds the primary auditory cortex. That is temporal lobe. Okay? Next, for five, controls the flow of messages between brain and the rest of the body. So that is brainstem. Brainstem. All right. For six, coordinates voluntary movements such as posture, balance, coordination, and speech. So that is cerebellum. Okay? So I hope you remember that. The human brain is not fully developed by the time a person reaches puberty. Brain cells continue to bloom in frontal region, and some of the most developmentally significant changes in the brain occur in prefrontal cortex, which involve in decision making and cognitive control. For girls, the brain reaches its largest physical size around 11 years old, while 14 years old for boys. Okay? And continue to mature well into the 20s. The brain grows and strengthens itself through growing new brain cells, pruning some extra growth, and strengthening connections. Okay. So our topic for today is obviously about brain parts, its processes, and functions. Okay? So our content standard, the learners demonstrate an understanding of brain parts, processes, and functions. The learner shall be able to identify ways to improve brain functions, which will be manifested in thoughts, behavior, and feelings. Our most essential learning competency is discussed that understanding the different parts of the brain processes and functions may help in improving thoughts, behavior, and feelings. For our objectives, we're going to discuss different parts of the brain processes and functions as well as different brain theories. And we're going to assess own cognitive ability using different tests, psychomotor. So, let's start. So, as early as 1664, Thomas Willis, an English doctor, concluded that the brain is responsible for mental functioning. The human brain consists of these three main structures: the cerebellum, and brainstem. So, the cerebrum is the largest portion of the brain, which consists of temporal lobe, occipital lobe, parietal lobe, and frontal lobe. Okay? So, when we say frontal lobe, it takes charge of our thoughts, language, memory, learning, and perception. For occipital lobe, located at the back of the brain, is responsible for our vision. Sulcus or sulci, a deep furrow that divides the cerebrum into two halves, left and right hemisphere. Okay, that is sulcus. Next is neuron, another term for, of course, nerve cell. Neurotransmitters are chemical substances that transmit messages from one neuron to next neuron. Okay? When we say synapse or synapses, space between two neurons where neurotransmitters are released. Okay? Okay. So, we have actually two theories. Number one is brain dominance theory. Okay? According to this theory, it states that our brain is a function of the heightened activity of either left or right brain hemisphere. No? Mas may gumagana daw na part ng brain according to this theory. So, sa left brain, yan, pag mas gumagana daw yung left brain mo, no, logic, analysis, ayan, nakaano po ako nakaharap ako sa slides ko, and if I'm going to see my slide, left side ko yan. Okay? Left side ko yan. Pero, if nakaharap sa inyo yan, I think nasa right yan. Okay? Pero left po yan ng ano ko ng screen. So, depende po sa side na lang. Okay? Pa sa left side, small on logic, analysis, sequencing, linear, math, facts, and computations. While for the right side daw, it consists of creativity, imagination, holistic thinking, intuition, arts, non-verbal feeling. Okay? Yun nga lang, syempre, hindi agree yung whole brain theory dyan. Kasi according to the brain dominance theory, we have the left and the right lang, yung mas gumagana. But according to whole brain theory, hindi yun gano'n, no? Scientists, medical doctors, psychologists, and psychiatrists have always been fascinated with the brain and how it works. Studies conducted on the brain often starts with an attempt to understand a brain-related disease or malfunction. Actually, in 1861, Paul Broca conducted a study on the language and left-right brain speculation on a patient who had problems with language. So after several tests, Broca theorized that some language functions reside on the left side of the brain. So another more researches were conducted on language functions and the brain. Other scientists continued their studies on brain-related disease and malfunction. On the other hand, Dr. Roger Sperry conducted a study for epilepsy, which gave him the 1989 Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine. Sperry explained that the brain has two hemispheres that perform tasks differently from each other. He discovered that the left hemisphere of the brain was performing tasks that were intuitive, creative, and synthesizing, while right hemisphere of the brain is more on analytical, logical reasoning, and critical thinking. Dr. Perry's theory was known as split brain theory or the split brain experiment. Another neuroscientist by the name of Dr. Paul MacLean came up with a theory that identified three distinct parts of the brain, namely neocortex, limbic system, reptilian complex, which were referred to as Triune brain theory. It's another theory actually, no? So Dr. MacLean, the neocortex or rational brain is responsible for intellectual tasks. Okay? So such as language planning, abstraction, and perception. While the limbic system or the intermediate brain is responsible for motivation, emotion involved, feeding, reproductive behavior, and parental behavior. So primary, there's a primitive brain in the reptilian complex which controls the self-preservation and aggressive behavior of humans, similar to survival instincts of animal. Okay? The study of the brain and its multiple functions continued until an engineer at General Electric, Ned Hermann, was tasked to determine why some individuals were more creative than others. After drawing from the study of Sperry, Hermann came up with what we call uh, brain dominance theory, which he derived from observation and test the human body, although symmetrical and paired with almost all aspects, does not necessarily function equally. No, so Hermann is regarded as father of brain dominance technology. But again, for whole brain theory, sinasabi niya na 'di ba? Hindi lang siya left and right, no? Actually, the whole brain ay nagkakaroon ng different processes because it has different functions. That's why, no, for Hermann's four dominant quadrants, he divided it into four. The the imaginative, analytical, interpersonal, and organized, no? Sabi niya diyan, for analytical, ito yung mga tao na logical, factual, critical, technical, quantitative, abstract, and impersonal. So usually, yung mga trabaho ng mga taong to ay CEO of technical organization, stock market, chemist, computer programming, and finance manager for analytical. For imaginative, ito yung mga tao na visual, holistic, intuitive, innovative, and conceptual. So usually, ito yung mga artists, entertainer, musician, entrepreneur, strategic planner, creative writer, and film director. While for interpersonal, ito yung sa emotional, spiritual, feeling, sensory, and kinesthetic. Naman po yung sa mga tao na marketing sales, real estate, elementary school teacher, social worker, counselor, and secretary. For the organized or sequential thinking, ito yung conservative, structured, of course, organized, and detailed plan. So ito naman daw yung mga trabaho dito, technical manager, operation manager, bookkeeping, drill sergeant, supervisory, nurse, and construction engineer. So that is Herman's four uh, quadrant. Okay? And actually, nasa four brain theory din, no? Pumapasok yung multiple intelligences. No, actually, hindi lang siya left and right. No? Nagsasabi rin na meron tayong multiple intelligences and different learning styles. Alright? That's why your learning activity is you're going to answer these three cognitive ability tests wherein you will discover your learning style, your multiple intelligences, and your cognitive aptitude. So, ito yung kanyang itsura. So, let me show you. Oops. Mhm. Waiting for my screen. na mag-flash sa inyo. Okay. So here's the learning style. Uh, Courtesy of course, University of California Student Advising and Learning Center. www.learning UC Merced Edu.site. All right. So you're going to check if it's often, sometimes, or seldom. I can remember best by listening to a lecture. I prefer to see information written on the board. I like to write things down or take notes for visual review. I prefer poster models or actual practice and other activities. Like I require explanation of diagrams, graphs, or visual directions. I enjoy working with hands or making things. I am skillful with joy developing making graphs. I can tell it sounds much with presented with pair sound. I can remember best by writing things down several times. I can easily understand the follow steps on a map and so on and so forth. I think it's up to 24 items. 24 number 24. So you're going to complete the table and by assigning following points for each questions. So often 5 points, sometimes 3 points, seldom 1 point. So for visual, it's number 2, 3, 7, 10, 14, 16, 19, 22. For auditory, 1, 5, 8, 11, 13, 18, 21, 24. For tactile or kinesthetic, like you want to move, it's 4, 6, 9, 12, 15, 17, 20, 23. Okay, so eto ha, if you are a visual learner, make sure all of available study material such as chart, maps, film strip, noteds, and videos. Make sure you use that, no? After discovering na, wait lang, visual pala ako. Okay? So, write out everything for frequent and efficient review. Practice visualizing or pictures, words, or concepts in your mind. Adding meaningful symbols, colors, and graphics to your notes also provide visual cues. Try to visualize how information appears on a page, and a study group or discussion focus on how people look when they speak. So if you're visual. If you discover that you're an auditory learner, no, mas nagpo-function yan sa'yo, try to use tapes to supplement other study materials. Tape lectures to fill the gaps in your notes and convert lectures to auditory tape. But do listen and take notes and review your notes frequently. So because you're auditory. For tactile learner, try tracing words as you say them. Facts that must be learned should be written several times. You keep a supply of scratch paper on hand for its purpose. Taking and keeping lecture notes is very important for tactile learner. It's also help you to make study sheets and associate class materials with real applications and occurrences. So, ayun po ha, may note ang University of Texas. Although it's important to know learning strength as a foundation for development of personal study habit, realize that not all college nurses instruction will lead themselves to your strength. No, actually, not all colleges, hindi lang naman yung courses pala to, college courses. Okay? Sige. So, next one is the multiple intelligence inventory. So, we have section 1. You need to check, parang complete at each section by placing 1 to each statement you feel accurately describes you. So, 1. Then you need to total it. Total number of ones. Then section 2, section 3, section 4, 5, 7, 8. So, and then part 3, okay, you need to multiply it by 10 below. So, here's the multiplied score. And then plot your score on a bar graph rather. So, you can see if it's your naturalistic that you love nature, musical, logical, existential, interpersonal, kinesthetic, verbal, interpersonal, and visual. So see that our brain is not just divided into left and right. Actually, for the whole brain theory, madami siyang functions and marami siyang processes. So we have this pie graph dito. And may explanation siya sa dulo. Kindly read it, okay? So, remember that everyone has all the intelligences. You can strengthen your intelligence. And this inventory is meant as a snapshot in time because it can change. So, multiple intelligence is meant to empower, not label people. Remember that, okay? And yung last part natin is the cognitive aptitude test. If you're going to open this website, para siyang quiz type. Okay. So, let us open. So, ayan. So, it's a free cognitive ability practice test that consists of different questions. So, ayan. To test, of course, your cognitive ability. Okay? So, punta na tayo dito sa slide ni ma'am. So, that's your learning ability, no? Of course, no, we can't scan your brain. So, titignan na lang natin yung learning style nyo, multiple intelligence nyo, and cognitive aptitude test. So, for generalization and, valuing, I want to know, how are we going to take good care? Take good care of our brain, no? And, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much.